Ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this month's hearing of the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission. I'm Kathy Pagani. I chair the commission. Today's date is May 10th, 2023, and the time is 5:00 p.m. I would like to invite my fellow commission members to introduce themselves to you, beginning on my right, please.
Mary Harmon Young.
William Edwards.
Jordan Morris.
Francine Wasden.
Sally Davis.
Thank you very much. And joining us from city staff this evening, we have Mr. Chad Hobbs, the Associate City Attorney, Mr. Hudson Cheshire, the Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Emily Hayes, Neighborhood Resource Coordinator, Mr. Jonathan Bowen, Planner, Ms. Angie Terrell, Administrative Assistant, and assisting with audiovisual support this evening is Mr. Kevin Jones. I'd like to go over briefly a statement of purpose for the Tuscaloosa Historic Preservation Commission and go over the procedures for this evening's hearing. The general purpose of the Historic Preservation Commission is that we serve to protect and preserve the buildings, sites, and structures of historic significance and interest in Tuscaloosa's historic neighborhoods. We are governed by Chapter 20, Article 2 of the Code of Tuscaloosa, which includes design guidelines that are posted on the city's website. Our decisions are based on these design guidelines and do not consider use or occupancy. We do consider such factors as architectural style, appropriateness of materials, and how the structure relates to other structures in the immediate neighborhood in determining the appropriateness of the application. An approval of an application requires 5 affirmative votes. If the certificate is approved, please be aware that there will be a final inspection by city staff to ensure compliance with what was approved this evening. So this hearing is a public hearing. It is televised live on local cable, streamed online through Facebook, and is being recorded to be placed on the city's website. We ask proper decorum, civility, and respect for others at all times. Prior to this meeting, notice was sent to adjacent property owners, and the public has been notified of the applications presented tonight. This hearing is a chance for the applicant to present his or her case, for the public to make their views known about an application, and for commission members to gather relevant facts about the application before making a decision. City staff will introduce the application. The applicant will then have the chance to make any comments. The commissioners will then have an opportunity to ask the applicant questions about the case. I will then open the floor to public comment. At the close of public comment, the commission will then discuss the matter and vote on the application. Any person wishing to speak on behalf of another person, group, or entity shall provide written authorization to the chairperson by that person, group, or entity being represented. Immediate family members, and we define that as a spouse, a parent, or a child, do not have to provide such written authorization when speaking on behalf of another immediate family member. We ask the applicants please leave signs in your yard. City staff will be around in the next couple of days to pick them up. As the Historic Preservation Commission has received a synopsis of the previous meeting, I move that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the same unless there are any deletions, additions, or corrections. Do I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes?
Yes.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Voting beginning with Ms. Young?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you. The commission members have had a chance to review tonight's agenda items. Do any of the members have a conflict of interest as defined by Section 6 of the commission bylaws with any of these items?
I have one with HPC 1923 and one with HPC 2623.
Thank you.
I do with case HPC 2723.
Thank you very much. Any others? All right, thank you very much. All right, I would like to ask the staff if proper notification has been provided for each of these agenda items.
It has.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. And let us then proceed with our applications for this evening. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commission. We'll first get to our continued cases from last month, starting with HPC 1423. Mark Johnson petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for a material and design change. This is to all windows at the primary structure at 12 14 Oakwood Avenue, the Oakwood Court Historic District. This is also Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property as well as an aerial view. This is an image of the primary structure as well as the adjacent northern, southern, and eastern properties. So this proposal may look similar. They actually received HPC approval back in February for a different material. So they are back asking to replace all current wood windows with double hung composite wood windows. So again, here's the primary structure and just a closer up image of some of the windows around the property. And so this material is for composite wood. This is Anderson is a window company, and just some of the examples of what the windows would look like. So here are the applicable design guidelines. You can see the composite materials listed for appropriate. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have the representative to speak here in person.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen? Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to step forward, please.
It appears we do not have the application or the petitioner's representative to speak here in person.
And so we have the option, is this correct, Mr. Hobbs, to move forward with it here with the applicant absent,
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
or we can continue it?
Yes. Is this the first hearing? This is the so this is the second hearing, so keep in mind that under the rules of the commission and the city's ordinance, if the commission does not act on an application within 60 days of filing, then the application is deemed approved by the commission. So since this application has already been continued once, if it is continued again without any action by the commission, it most likely, the 60 days would run and it most likely would be approved prior to the commission's next meeting.
Right. So I would suggest that we discuss this one and vote on it with the applicant in absentia this evening. Does that sound all right? All right. So we've had no submitted public comment. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to this application? I'll close the floor to public comment then, and let me open the floor to a motion or comments by commission members. So change of material of an application that's been previously approved. The material is appropriate to the design guidelines. Is there any further discussion that we need to have? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. We will vote. Beginning on my left, please. Dr. Davis?
Yes.
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 So, Mr. Bowen, we let the applicant know that his application has been approved this evening and that should anything change, he should come and speak to you before proceeding. Thank you very much. And let's have the record show that Mr. Edwards has recused himself from the hearing at this point.
Next case is HPC 1923. Charles Edwards petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations to the primary structure. This is at 47 Guildswood in the Guildswood Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have an aerial view of the property as well as the location. This is a view of the primary structure from the street. Next, we have the adjacent eastern and southern properties. So the proposal is to convert an existing bonus room into a garage. Again, this is a view of the primary structure, and this shows that area that's going to be converted from a bonus room. They're going to put a garage door in its place. Here we have a good site plan showing where that location is at, and then this is the before and after elevations of that proposed door. The materials are for a steel garage door, and here are those material spec sheets. In the applicable design guidelines, we do have design guidelines related to detached garage doors, which this material would meet. We do not have specific design guidelines around attached garage. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Are there any questions for Mr. Bowen? Thank you very much. Let me invite the applicant to step forward, please. And we'll need your name and your address for the record, please, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Charles Edwards. My wife and I own 47 Guildswood, 35401. So, we wanted to add the garage. We feel like it adds a lot more functionality and usability to our house and promotes more of a long-term stay for us as we continue to grow our family. There really isn't a place to store anything in our house. There's not ample storage inside, being an older home. And so we have baby carriers in the foyer, probably like 3 different strollers to start around the house. And then we think it adds more functionality to the house to be able to park within a garage rather than in the driveway. When we reviewed different garage doors around our neighborhood, there was no set method or design style guideline. So some doors were single doors with no windows, with windows, larger 18-foot doors with no windows, some with windows. So we just tried to pick something that complemented the house. The rectangular shape of the windows, trying to match what is currently there with the other windows. We picked white, obviously, because it's a white house. And after reviewing everything else, we just tried to match what we currently had. So we think it adds more, again, functionality to our house and stays within the guidelines of the design.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions for Mr. Edwards?
Yes. Do I understand that possibly the bonus room used to be a garage?
Yes, so I send out emails to all my neighbors, just telling them like, heads up, this isn't like anything else. But half of them replied back saying that they thought it was a garage originally. So everyone was in support. I didn't provide documentation, but they said it was a garage at one point. I don't have a record of it. Looked for pictures, everything, but unfortunately I don't have it. What I do know is like the 2 windows that are there that look like doors, there's a brick lintel that goes across the entire span. So you would think there was a garage there at one point. The depth of the room is about 21 feet, so it's got the depth of a garage, and it's got the floor sloping like a garage would. I just don't have any pictures of its former state.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
We've had no submitted comments. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of this application or opposition to it? I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion and a motion by commission members.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second?
I have a motion to approve and I have a second. We will vote beginning on my right, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Mr. Edwards, your application has been approved this evening. Should anything change, please see city staff before you proceed. There will be a final inspection, and good luck with your project.
We're going to give Mr. Edwards just a minute to get back in here.
Thank you. And let the record show that Mr. Edwards is rejoining the hearing.
All right, we're going to move on to HPC 2223. Linda Ayers has been notified of repairs needed to maintain a home in a historic district and must appear before the HPC for approval of those repairs. This is for the primary structure located at 7 Guildswood in the Guildswood Historic District, Council District 4. This is the location and aerial view of the property. This is a view of that primary structure. So the proposal is for the repairs listed to the items that you see here for the deteriorated siding, repair, replace, rotten, damaged, a cornice surrounding the roof, replace any of the missing roof coverings, properly prepare and paint the structure, as well as clean up some of the vegetation on the property. And here again, we have a view of the primary structure, as well as just a closer-up view of some of the areas that were notified by our property maintenance team. The petitioner has stated that they are going to repair and replace like for like, so like siding, cornice, and roof materials will be replaced with what's already existing. And then here we have those applicable design guidelines. We did not receive any public comment for this application. We did have the petitioner state they would be here in person. I'm not sure if they are here in person.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bowen? All right, thank you very much. I'd like to invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to step up to the podium. And again, we have someone who is not here in a case of property maintenance. Mr. Hobbs, I've not had this one before. I don't know that we need to continue it because repairs need to be done.
Bear with me just
Okay.
one second, because there is a specific provision in the municipal code that deals with property maintenance issues. So bear
Thank
with
you.
me just 1 second while
Okay.
I pull that up.
Can we go back to a slide of
Here we
the
go.
property while we're waiting? There we go. Thanks.
Madam Chair, in section 20-15.30, subsection C, I believe it is, deals with these types of cases, failure to provide ordinary maintenance. And the code says that in the event that the owners fail to attend the scheduled HPC meeting as provided pursuant to the notice from the planning department, the HPC may, in their discretion, continue the case to the next regular scheduled meeting of the HPC, or refer the matter to the chief building official for disposition pursuant to paragraph 6 and 7. In other words, at this point, since the homeowner or their representative is not here, the commission has the choice between continuing the case for 1 month or acting by referring the case to the chief building official for them to take further action on the case.
And so we would need a commission member or possibly the chair to make a motion on which option to do and vote on it. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
That's
All right.
correct.
I would like to move then, make a motion that we refer the matter to the chief building official for the city so we can move on this.
I have a question. That does not forego any of the inspections by staff pursuant to the guidelines. Doing so, okay.
Correct.
Is that a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Very lively 2 seconds there. All right. So the motion then is to refer the matter to the chief building official, and we shall vote on that, beginning on my left, please, Dr. Davis.
Yes.
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 Mr. Bowen, will you let the property owner know? Thank you very much. And let the record show that Dr. Nelson has joined the hearing. And let the record show that Mr. Edwards is recusing himself from this case.
All right, moving on to HPC 26, Peter Brumman petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the addition of a basketball court in the rear of the property. This is at 1523 13th Street in the 13th Street Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the aerial view of the property, as well as a view of its location. This is a view of the primary structure from the street. Next, we have the adjacent eastern, western properties. So the proposal is to install a concrete pad that is 45 feet by 20 feet. The concrete pad will consist of 2 basketball goals each end, and as well as a pickleball net in the middle of the pad. The petitioner also proposes to remove an existing chain link fence. This is on the south edge of the property. They are also going to repair an existing retaining wall and install a new fence on top of the retaining wall. The existing retaining wall is at its tallest 2 feet in height. With the fence, the tallest combined would be 7 feet. The wood fence will also match the existing fort that's in the petitioner's backyard. as well as along the east edge of the property. There's currently a 5-foot tall traditional wood slat fence. Some of this fence will be removed at the end, and also they will install a concrete block wall covered in stucco measuring 8 feet tall. So we do have broken down images to show exactly what the proposal is. Again, here is that primary structure. This is the location of the concrete pad on the property. And then here's exactly what that proposal is spelled out. So you can see the different types of walls, different types of fences that are to be installed surrounding that concrete pad.
Can you go over each element of the retaining wall and the fences for us with this
Sure, yeah.
image? Thanks.
So for this section here, and we have some of the pictures that maybe clarify a little bit of this, but this is where the existing retaining wall exists. They will remove the chain link fence and install the wood slat fence or the wood fence on top of that. On this section here, we have a much smaller retaining wall measuring 30 inches in height. They are covering it in concrete block plaster, which is one of the appropriate fence materials. This section here, as you'll see in the images, there's an existing wood fence. Their plan is to remove some of the portions of that fence and instead install an 8-foot tall concrete block wall covered in plaster. This is an example of the fort that currently exists in the rear yard. This is what that fence material that's to be installed on the retaining wall. Here are a picture of the basketball hoop. And this is the area on the property where it's to be installed. And we do have a couple of closer up images that show the different type of fencing. For example, you can see the existing retaining wall running alongside that chain link fence. The chain link fence is to be removed, and that new fence, similar to what you see here, will be installed on top of the retaining wall. This is just a closer up image of what's currently there. This portion here, and I will let the petitioner show exactly which portion of this fence is to be removed, but this is where that 8-foot block covered in plaster wall would be located. So materials, concrete pad, stucco block, and a wood slat fence. Here are applicable design guidelines for yard accessories. The reason that this did not receive any expedited approval is because it is larger than the 120 square feet. However, it's not to say that a yard accessory is limited to 120 square feet, so that is why it's before the commission. And then here we have the applicable design guidelines for fences and walls. We did receive 7 emails in opposition to this petition, and we do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
And can you let us know, just briefly, the nature of these emails that are opposing this application?
Sure. Some of them mention noise from the basketball court, the pickleball court. Others mentioned that it was, going to be a large structure close to property lines. That was really the 2 main points hit on the public comment.
Any issues about drainage?
There were some issues mentioned from drainage. We did reach out to the Office of City Engineers. They said, and we do have a comment, I believe we provided as well, they do not think that this will create any drainage issues. However, if there are drainage issues currently, it could exacerbate that problem.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Bowen?
I know you said since it was over 120 square feet, do we know the square footage of what the pad's going to be?
The concrete pad is roughly 900 square feet.
Okay.
Anything else? But we have approved materials here, sort of on a very basic level.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to invite the applicant to come up to the podium, please, and we'll need your name and your address, please, sir.
Good evening. My name is Peter Bremen. I live at 1523 13th Street. Yeah, I'm just here to apply to put some concrete in the backyard so my boys can play some basketball. We just have a growing family. They keep on getting bigger and just need some more space to play sports in the backyard. And thought this part of the backyard was kind of the farthest removed from the street. Kind of the guidelines say you keep it in the rear of the building. We don't really use this part of the yard for much else, and we're just trying to put up fencing that would try to do our best to keep, the balls inside our yard and not, spill over to our neighbors' yards. And yeah, so that's
Can
what we
you,
hope to do.
can you go over the fencing for this application for us? We've got this image here, maybe this will help, or if you can just, sort of go over again where the wood's going to be taken down, what's going where, just to make sure we're really clear.
Yeah, so on this picture where there's the chain link fence, we'll take the chain link fence down. We didn't put that up. That was there when we bought it. But behind that, there's a retaining wall that will repair as needed. But then on top of that retaining wall, we're going to put just like a wood slat fence that you saw on our fort that's on the other side of that building. So it allows some airflow, but also is able to keep the balls in as much as possible. But then, if you go forward a picture, I think it is, on the end of the property where the wood slat fence is, we're going to take that part down and put up a concrete block wall, just so they can have, bounce balls off of, but also keep the balls inside our yard as much as possible. Mr. Bowen was saying that we need to keep it below 8 feet because that's what the zoning guidelines are, and so that's what we're planning to do, or hoping to do.
How much of that wood fence is coming down?
Just to the width of the concrete pad. So
Okay.
it'll be about 22 feet is the width of the concrete pad. Just so it's, and then in front of that, we're gonna put some sort of drain to help with the drainage. So as the water does flow that way, we'll collect that.
Are there other questions? Mr. Drummond?
I have a question. Did you give consideration to having it on the other side of the outbuilding, between the house and the outbuilding?
We did consider that. We have a bit of a concrete pad on the back of our house, on the rear of our house at the moment. But we also have a lot of grass, and we like to, enjoy playing in that part of the grass. And so this part of the yard we don't use for other types of activities, and so we thought we could make use of it by putting the concrete pad back there.
And the concrete goes up to the walls on all three sides?
Yeah, so on the north, south, and east sides, it'll go all the way up to the walls. On the west side, we have to, the way that the yard slopes, we're adding a retaining wall. And so that's why it's not touching the garage, because the garage is a bit higher up. So that wall on the left there is going to be a new wall, because we will have to kind of like split level the yard to make it work.
So do you currently have drainage issues there with the,
No.
But I believe you're in the high part of 13th Street.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Thanks.
I'll open the floor to public comment. So, Mr. Bowen, let me just ask you again, you have had 7 emails submitted in opposition to the application. All right. Let me begin here with, is there anyone here to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to it? Thank you. So I'll tell you what, come up one at a time. We'll need each of you as you come up, just you decide amongst yourselves who would like to come up in which order. You're welcome to come up. And we will need your name and your address. And you have 3 minutes to let us know.
My name is Raymond Morris, and I live at 1311 Shady Lane. My property is west of his and south of his, so I'm on 2 sides of the Drummonds. And my comment about this, and I appreciate you allowing my opposition to this proposal to be noted. Just being in an OC area, you're more likely to have smaller lots with mutual boundaries, and any project can impact multiple neighbors. The proposal here does. The project requesting to add 900 square feet cement pad with 2 basketball goals and a pickleball court, when used, will have a significant impact on our quiet neighborhood. It is less than 3 feet from my garden room, which is across the boundary there, and 9 feet to a koi pond. The garden room was converted from a work shed by prior owners. I have continued to improve the garden area and garden room in the 13 years I've been here, which I've used for entertaining friends and a quiet refuge for myself. So please consider the proximity of this project when making your decision and its negative impact on neighbors of noise from basketballs in contact with concrete and board paddles and pickleball and noise of excitement of game participation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris.
Pardon?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And I did submit a letter before this, so I hope everyone had an opportunity to read it.
It was sent out to us. Thank you. Yes, we appreciate your comments.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Wendy Schnaufer, 1316 15th Avenue. I live to the east part of, that abuts the back of their proposed site. I wasn't sure that you got the letter, so, or you were all able to read the letters that we sent in protest, so I thought I would just summarize the points. About the location, I think it's inappropriate because we have small lots and the people who directly live on all sides of the property really treasure our backyards, the quiet, the solitude there. We spend a lot of time there every day in the backyards. And I think the site is inappropriate because it will add excessive noise pollution. I'm also concerned about the water pesticide runoff from the large concrete pad. We haven't heard where that water is going, but I'm assuming it's coming into our yards. I'm concerned about any light pollution from nighttime playing. Finally, I'm cultivating a native landscape there with native plants. We're in the 6th mass extinction. I'm very concerned about the insects, including pollinators and birds. So this proposed location is detrimental to this kind of sanctuary that I'm cultivating here. Finally, I suggest that a driveway is a typical space to play basketball. You've got a concrete pad there. The applicant could work with that and bring in portable fencing areas to play, and it's already a public-facing spot, so it would have minimal new negative impacts for us who live right up close to that back area there that you've seen. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Collier. I live at 1521 13th Street. The real issue with this project is not whether or not it's visually pleasing. The main issue here is the noise and the distraction and the water runoff that it could potentially cause. And those issues are enhanced since the court will be built immediately on the property line. So it's a quality of life issue. I'm not quibbling about the materials necessarily being used, but for any adjoining property owners and for anyone downstream or within earshot, it's going to be quite the problem. And this court's not going to be used just on the weekends. It's not a weekend kind of arrangement where outside property owners are renting this house out. It's going to be used daily, and so. I'll note also that pickleball noise, it's a popular sport now, but it's the source of many disputes and litigation nationwide because of the noise. I don't believe that the HPC guidelines really address this sort of project. I think maybe for that reason alone, should be inappropriate for the historic district. The worst-case scenario for the historic district residents would be that if the commission approves the petition without requiring some specific materials and devices that are used to mitigate these huge issues that will affect the neighbors daily. A few of these requirements could be, as Peter's asking for here, the increased height of walls, the use of pervious concrete rather than impervious, and netting to prevent objects from landing in other folks' yards. I understand that netting isn't even allowed in the guidelines. So in this case, the guidelines are kind of standing in the way of things that Peter could do to improve our quality of life. By approving this petition, it greenlights projects like this to be developed throughout the historic district, and I know that y'all are aware of that. It creates a precedent. So once again, I ask that this petition not be approved. I believe it's inappropriate for the small lots and maintaining our neighborhood's historical nature. It benefits the few and for the sacrifices of many, because there's many letters that you've received in opposition to this. So I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for coming this evening. Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to the application? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamie Brewer, 1101 Queen City Avenue. This project doesn't affect my property personally, but I've lived in my house for 25 years around the students, and I know the noise that basketball games make. And this past year, pickleball has been introduced with the boys up the street on Queen City, and you can hear that cracking up and down the street. And what scares me even worse than that is allowing a basketball court to be put in with poured cement. What's to stop every student rental from putting a basketball court in their backyard? And then that could turn into more parking, which I believe is against the code. But it is just something that scares me to death to think that along 11th Street, all those student rentals would all have cement backyards, and it would be all crammed up with cars and whatever, and drainage. And the drainage problem alone with this location, I've seen firsthand the low-lying areas where they flood. And everyone else has covered everything else, so I don't think I can add too much to that except my fear of the parking and the cement.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Brewer.
you.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming. Is there anyone else? All right, let me close the floor to public comment, and I'll invite the applicant to come back to the podium. We'll give you a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, if you want to address any of the comments. I assume that the submitted letters were shared with you. Is that correct? No. Well, the letters in opposition were shared with Mr. Drummond?
We did not share those.
All right.
letters.
Well, a lot of the same issues that you've heard tonight were in the submitted comments from the public. And just giving you an opportunity, a couple of minutes, if you want to address any of the issues. They're not part of the design guidelines, and we'll get to that in a moment, but I am inviting you to talk about certain things that are applicable if you like.
Yes, thank you for the chance. Just a couple of the specific comments about why not we use the driveway. The driveways in the historic district are very narrow, and there's not a lot of space, and ours slopes pretty significantly down into the street, so there's just not room, I think, to kind of play basketball in where our driveway is at the moment. I'd be happy to kind of build up bigger walls, as the one neighbor recommended, but that violates the zoning laws, and so I'd have to get a variance from the zoning to do walls that are taller. So these were the tallest that we could do within the context of the guidelines we have. And yeah, we're just trying to find space for our kids to be able to play in the city. We enjoy living downtown. It's been a great neighborhood for the 10 years we've been here. And people keep on saying small lot sizes. I think this is a big lot. We have a big yard. This is in the far back of our property. It's not close to anybody's home. That's my I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions while Mr. Brumman is at the podium?
Do you think the concrete will be less noisy, the product that you're using when the ball hits that concrete? I mean, I
my
don't
boys are
know.
playing
It
in the-
just seems like to me that might be not as noisy as some products that you could use, you know? I don't know. I was just trying to think about,
that's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
I do know that my boys are playing in the backyard quite a bit already, and so there's
Yeah.
just another opportunity for them to play in the backyard.
yeah. I was just thinking to myself, maybe it wouldn't be as loud using the concrete as some people would think. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brumman. We appreciate that. All right, I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion by commission members. So there are several aspects about this. In my time on the commission, I had never dreamed that I would be talking about a pickleball court. Have not looked at basketball courts either. But this application is unusual for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're talking about use here with pickleball and basketball, and we don't deal with use. Under the design guidelines that we saw this evening, we see these accessory structures in yards not to exceed, there we go, up to 120 square feet. We're here looking at something that's 900 square feet. However, it is essentially a paved pad, much in the way we've looked at some parking pads and the guidelines around that, just to address some of the fears of lots of these things going up on smaller lots. There is that proportion of the yard size with what is being paved. And I think that's kind of important for us to consider here. We do indeed have a large yard. Issues with the neighbors, worrying about noise and other things are really real. There is no provision for that right now in the design guidelines. So we have a few things here to talk about. The size, 120 square feet, as we can see on the slide, versus the 900 of the proposal, and talking about paved pads. But we really don't have any provision in the guidelines to talk about the noise created from the use of that, much to the disappointment, I know, of a lot of the neighbors. But the Historic Preservation Commission doesn't have a means of addressing that specifically. But I do welcome comments and discussion. This is unusual. All right, it's worth taking our time on.
As you went ahead and have already laid out, Mr. Hobbs, would you say that the city code and the guidelines are generally permissive or restrictive in nature? I mean, the fact that it's not mentioned in here would effectively mean that we don't regulate it, as in the basketball goals and the pickleball nets. Would you consider that to be true?
The design guidelines are silent, do not have a specific rule related to basketball courts, pickleball courts, other types of things of that nature, in the same way that the design guidelines speak to, say, decks or pergolas or other accessory structures. There are some general provisions in the design guidelines. In Article 8, dealing with the general or the statement of the general rule on additions and other alterations onto an existing property. And then in Article 12, Section G, the provision on overall continuity that do, and I can flip to those very quickly if you would like me to, that just speak to kind of the general standards for any additions or changes in an historic district where there's not a more specific rule. Beyond that, the other main source of guidance for the commission, I think, is actually going to come from both the city's ordinance on the historic on certificates of appropriateness and the state code on HPCs and certificates of appropriateness. And what it says there is that this is in section 20-15.29, subsection K, that the commission shall approve the application and issue a certificate of appropriateness if it finds that the proposed material changes conforms to the general design standards established by the commission, is compatible with the character of the historic property or historic district, and does not detract from the value of the historic property or historic district. So that is, again, you know, it's just a general standard for to kind of guide the decision or guide the commission in its decision-making process. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the chair had a question. Sorry.
May I add to what you're saying? Can you read again in the general statement of purpose that you read at the beginning of the meeting? To protect the structures and sites of historic neighborhoods?
That's right. That we serve to preserve and protect the buildings, sites, and structures of historic significance and interest in Tuscaloosa's historic neighborhoods.
And the last phrase?
In Tuscaloosa's historic neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very sort of brief, these are brief comments that I make, but that's, you know, we are here, and in fact, I've often thought of changing that language, and I almost did that tonight, because what we are doing is we are preserving and protecting the integrity of the historic districts, including the sites, the structures in these historic areas. So you can think about our charge that way.
I am thinking about our charge that way. And in particular, the backyard configuration as these 3 lots come together. 4 neighbors are affected, but there are 3 lots abutting the pickleball, basketball court. And if you see, the lots are very peculiar, and this is the result of things being done, decisions being made, property lines being drawn 100 years ago. And a lot of things have followed because of that, I would say. And we're looking at preserving what has in fact been created with this very tight backyard that has limited space, so that it's not a typical subdivision lot where you would have space and you would have a significant space between the end of the pad and the beginning of somebody else's property. Here, it's right up against the 8-foot wall. And I would say that the 8-foot wall or the 7-foot wall, while understandable, isn't in agreement with our guidelines, which say 6 feet walls.
But we can approve
We
higher.
can approve higher, but as it stands, it is not approved. I mean, we haven't yet voted on it, but
Right,
it's not
right.
within the guidelines.
It's part of what
there.
we're going to discuss, yeah.
So, to protect the building sites and structures of historic neighborhoods, I would say we're protecting the sites of these backyards that come together in very close proximity, which is atypical in modern suburban areas.
Thank you for that. I'm wondering, because some of these comments have me thinking about this in a slightly different way, and I'm wondering, when we go back to that overall continuity that you had talked about, Mr. Hobbs, and about you know, sort of this compatibility with historic districts, because I think Dr. Davis makes a really good, an interesting point about the nature of these lots, how they converge, where the court is in relation to where those properties converge in terms of, I think that, anyway, it's sort of where I'm thinking right now. Can you go over that again about the overall continuity of the
Yes, ma'am.
area?
And this is, again, this is in Article 12 of the design guidelines, and this is the provision of the guidelines that is relative to site features and lot improvement. So as you go through this, as Article 12, this is where you'll find the specific guidelines on accessory buildings, decks, porches, and railings, exterior lighting, other things of that nature. The Section G in Article 12 just speaks to overall continuity. And it says, and it basically says that the site features must maintain or should maintain the overall continuity of the district and its aspect and character, especially as viewed from public rights of way. And that's the extent of the design guideline on overall
All right,
continuity.
but it's interesting because you alerted me to a section of the design guidelines that I have here, and Dr. Davis, this might help you a little bit. This is Article 12, Design Guidelines Relative to Site Features and Lot Improvements. And I'll just read this, it's brief. Site features and lot improvements are critical to the character of the district, regardless of the contributing or non-contributing nature of the structures in any particular part of the district. Much of the character of a historic district is attributable to the continuity of its open space, distinctive tall shade trees, and richly textured lawns and landscape plantings. Outbuildings, walks, driveways, and parking areas also play an important part in defining not only the setting for individual structures, but also the district as a whole.
You know, I think it's correct that probably our charge, and I've reviewed the documents, I apologize, I was a little late, but our charge is primarily to maintain the structures and the overall neighborhood. You know, one thing is that this is in a backyard, and so it doesn't necessarily affect the continuity of the neighborhood for most people. But, you know, I think that I'd be inclined, and I'm somebody who's been pretty protective of historic districts and pretty conservative on some of these things, but, you know, I think the reality is when you live in a central neighborhood with compact lots and a lot of people together, that some of those people are going to be children. And I'm somebody who has young children, and they are loud. They're loud as heck. But it's part of being in a neighborhood like this, and whether we can consider noise or not, to me, it's actually, in the long run, part of what brings vibrancy to the neighborhoods and keeps them young and going. And so while I'm not at all insensitive to the fact that things are the way they are and there's a quietness and there's that and it's peaceful and it's great, but things change too.
Well,
You know,
let me just underscore, and remember, we don't talk about use. So noise falls under that. I just want to get us all kind of back on that too. So thank you, Mr. Cox.
I mean, to that end, the word sound and the word noise does not appear in the guidelines at all. 0 times. So, between that and the fact that everything we have is visual in nature, to the point that one of public comments actually said that the materials and everything was acceptable. I feel like we would be going, you know, out on a limb pretty far with anything related to this, especially considering the fact that all of our, it's not written in there at all specifically as related to the goals, the nets, and effectively they're well under the 35% coverage for the rear yards. So the concern about going in and paving backyards to the point of parking and things like that, I feel like we're still on firm ground as related to all of these other locations where they have very small yards and are attempting to exceed that amount. So I feel like with the guidance that we have, I don't see anything that I can oppose to.
Thank you for that. Other comments? So
Is that the only concrete that will be in the backyard? I'm trying to look down. Is that a driveway, a gravel driveway that comes back to the garage back there in the back, or is that a concrete driveway? It's a gravel driveway? It's a grass driveway from the street all the way back. Okay.
Please come to the podium.
Yes, so what's highlighted in purple is currently concrete, but the concrete stops at the portico at the bottom of that purple circle. And then the space from the portico all the way back to the garage is just grass.
Is the only other concrete in the backyard that little pad I see adjacent back there?
Correct.
Is there any other concrete?
That's the only other concrete in the backyard.
What's that big space between there and the garage? Is that open space? That's
It's
all?
just grass. And this looks like it's a little bit old. We've planted some trees that aren't shown there, but.
Thank you. So again, we've never have been presented with an application quite like this one
I know.
in the past, so it's not, it's unusual for a number of reasons. But what we have to remember as commission members is what our charge is as preserving, protecting historic districts, but also what governs, because I also say in my introductory remarks that we are governed by the design guidelines that have been, adopted and approved, and that's what we use. So, and when we do deny an application, we bring it back to the design guidelines that, material is not appropriate, or a roof style is not appropriate to the style of the main structure, these sorts of things. The size, although it's larger than we have for, I think the guideline for yard accessories, it's a paved pad. And so to me, in my mind, it falls more under what we've dealt with parking pads and things, where we look at the size relative to the size of the yard. We've got to have that very well-defined percentage that we don't go over. This is well under that, and it's in the back. We have problems with the neighbors, though, with concerns about this. And one thing I want to just ask Mr. Bowen, should they want to do lighting later on, that is an HPC application, correct? They want to put, because there was some concern about lighting, and that we
If they wanted what?
add lighting,
Mhm.
because there was some concern about light, but they would come back to,
Exterior lighting would be something that staff could approve, but in this case, since it's tied to an HPC case, it could
Okay.
come back before.
yeah. So just so the neighbors know that if any lighting going on back there in the future would have to come before the commission. But anyway, this is what we've got to think about, and this is why this is kind of tough. Talking about issues about drainage and things, we have no guidelines on that. It's not us, and that's what makes it hard.
It's true, it's not us, but I wonder if in the motion we could include a plea to the city engineer. If you look at the house in question, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 houses from 15th Avenue. It is on 13th Street. The high point is right where this house is. And 2 years ago, 13th Street from the midpoint down, all of Oakwood Avenue, which goes up that way, 15th Avenue, which goes that way, was under 3 feet of water for 24 hours. Now, I know that the city engineering office knows this, and I know that the mayor knows this, but I would like us to put, if we're going to vote on this, something that calls attention to the city engineer to say this needs special attention.
I'm just wondering, it seems, to me, we've not done this before. Doesn't mean
We
I
haven't done
just,
any of it before.
no. And so I'm just wondering what the Office of Council thinks about this.
The first question I have is Ms. Davis, are you asking for the city engineer to call their attention specifically to this project or to the drainage
project
issue?
and to the chronic flooding problems, but the exceptional flooding problem of 2 years ago,
Okay.
because it's gotten worse.
I mean, I do know that there was a question asked of the engineers related to drainage issues related to, I've got it, thank you. Related to this specific court, and I believe that was included in the packet to all the commissioners. So that has been done. Now, if the commission wants to, would like to, take up a motion, a more specific
A
motion.
separate motion.
A separate motion related to that, I think that would, as a matter of just procedure and order, would just fall into the other business section of the meeting, if a commissioner wanted to make a motion to that effect.
Hey Kathy, I think the only other thing I would want to say is we talked through all of it. We were talking about maintaining the historical integrity of the historic district and how important that is. And also in thinking about that in relation to precedent, although I don't see one area like this terribly disrupting the integrity of a historic district in that area, it does make me wonder, under precedent, if we were to see multiple of these come across, would that, in fact?
Well, and what is the precedent? This is, like, what do you see as the precedent here? Because we've got to remember, we've got to take ourselves away from the use
You're right.
aspect. So
Just that much concrete in an area.
it's, right. So with that, the way I see it here, and worrying about precedent, because I do, we've got a very large lot here with that, paved area. So it's well within sort of the proportions for the lot.
But not every lot will it perhaps
No,
be in.
but then they couldn't put in something that big.
Hopefully.
It would be, well, because we've got that 35%
What was the
rule.
earlier statement you made about horticultural? I thought that was so cool. You talked about plants and planting and
Right.
horticulture, and I thought that was appropriate.
Much of the character of a historic district is attributable to the continuity of its open space, distinctive tall shade trees, and richly textured lawns and landscape plantings.
That part. That's
And
the
then-
part that made me start thinking about seeing that much more concrete.
Well, and outbuildings, walks, driveways, and parking areas also play an important part in defining not only the setting for individual structures, but also the district as a whole. Now, we've got that. But what we also have then is the breakdown of all of that following it in Article 12. And that includes, let's say, if we want to just take out that section on outbuildings, walks, driveways, and parking areas, then that is dealt with later in the guidelines, more specifically by talking about location, talking about size, talking about other things, materials.
So we could cite exceptions in the future if, in regards to precedent of why we would not approve something else.
I mean, just looking at, as I sit here looking at this aerial as we discuss this, I mean, look at the lot immediately to the right of this one, just to the east. I mean, they have a very large paved area in their rear yard, much larger than the one that this house already has.
It's up adjacent to the house, correct?
That's correct. And their lot is smaller. So their percentage would be greater than probably the end result of this. I still feel that based on the coverage, if this were a very small lot, I mean, for instance, the lot on the corner of Shady Lane and 13th, then we would definitely be having a very, very different discussion.
You know, and when I looked at it as well, when I was asking about the paved patio, and back there, I thought, oh my gosh, it'd be worse if it were between that paved patio and the garage to me than in the location that it's in, if you have to look at locations. Because there's definitely larger space there, green space between the house and the garage to me.
That's not a garage.
What is that?
It's an outbuilding.
Outbuilding? Okay. To me, that's a much larger space where but to me, that's a more perhaps valuable place to keep open green than maybe back, so.
Well, and going back to the issue about precedent too, because I don't see this setting a precedent, because we're not talking about setting up a sub-article on pickleball courts or basketball courts. We're really talking about paved areas relative to space, location, all that kind of stuff.
That's great to hear because that was my problem.
Well,
That was my
right,
catch
right.
with it was precedent.
The thing is, too, you've been on the commission quite a while, and you know that every case we look at, I mean, precedent may play a role in some cases, but very rarely does it, because we really do look at each case individually and really tease out all the issues like we are right now. Look at fences that we've been dealing with. Look at, trying to think of some other things that we've done in the recent past, but in long term. You know, we really do look at window replacements. We really do look at each case relative to the design guidelines. Precedents aren't really precedents. They're more of an interpretation of the design guidelines for that particular application. And that's, I think, how this works, right? And how we're able to make this work with historic districts that are so idiosyncratic, right? No property is the same. Look at this, like these lot lines are wild, right? We don't typically see this. So that's part of the beauty of the historic districts. You know, taking that then and looking at the design guidelines and looking at the application, we've got to tease out all those issues.
And I think in that oddity of it all, part of the difficulty here for the neighbors has to be the proximity to their property. I mean, if you take the concrete pad immediately to the right, the patio area in the next yard, it's only near one property. This is near 3, actually 4, I think. And it's slam up against it. That makes a difference. The percentage of paved property in this instance, I don't think is the issue, even though that's what's covered in the guidelines.
It's about location.
It's
Yeah,
location.
it's about location.
And I think with the design guidelines, it's, again, open for interpretation because they are to be to the rear, broadly speaking. So, and typically not viewable from the public right of way. So we have that, but there's a lot of leeway in that. What do we think?
You know, I'm moving back, and I know that we talked earlier about the noise was not something that we could address, and I understand that. But I do feel like that is one of the main issues with the neighbors, and it would be an issue with me as well. But I would like to just ask for the homeowner to think about how he can eliminate some of that noise with maybe putting a rubber mat or something, a sound barrier up against the concrete wall to try to help the neighbors so that they could possibly work together. You know, do something to think about it, because if you were in that same situation and you've been in your house a long time, you might not want to listen to bouncing balls all the time. So just if there was a way to eliminate some of the noise and for everybody to, you know, get along or have, looking at both sides of it, because I think that's where we are now, is trying to help both sides get to, you know, agree and everybody be happy.
Right, right. Well, and apparently
So-
there are low noise rackets and low noise pickleball balls. I'm not an expert in this, but I've been informed on this issue, just to let you know. I didn't realize there was a problem. I don't know much about pickleball. But here we are. We've got an application in front of us here
right.
of something unusual, right? We have, so let's come back to it, and we can work toward a motion. And I do respect all the comments that came up tonight. They're great. Nothing is ever really cut and dried, right, in what we do on this commission. So we have appropriate materials. We haven't talked about the fence. That doesn't seem to be an issue among the commission members with what they're doing here. We have a concrete pad of a size that is within the guidelines for the lot size. We know the location of it. And that's what we work with on this one. and we can take these various articles and sub-articles from the guidelines to this and have a motion and these guidelines. This is why we have a commission of a number of people with different ways of reading things, and that's what I think makes the commission really great.
In light of all of that statement,
Yep.
motion to approve.
All right, so I have a motion to approve the application as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, and I have a second. Now, what we'll do here is any further discussion, we will vote, all right, and then see how things shake out. Sound good? All right, so the motion is to approve the application as presented. We'll begin on my right, please, with Mr. Cox.
Yes.
I'm really struggling with this, but through all my training being on the Historic Commission, anytime we vote to deny a petition, we have to state a specific guideline. And regardless of my personal thoughts, I can't find one that I can state. So I'm very begrudgingly voting to approve it.
Well, and keep in mind, when you vote yes on this, it is through the design guidelines. I understand with the public, the issues of noise and these other concerns are very real. We just don't deal with those specifically here.
Yes.
So I am going to vote yes as well on this application because of the design guidelines. Mr. Morris?
For all of the same reasons that have been stated thus far, yes.
And I'm voting yes.
I have to say that the guidelines have failed us in this instance, and I abstain.
Yes.
Thank you, Commission members. I know that was tough. So let me state to the applicant, and let me state to those who took the time to submit comments and come here and spend some time. This was a tough application for us to review. Mr. Drummond, your application has been approved as presented. You've heard a lot of public comment this evening. I don't know if that will influence anything of what happens and how you move forward, but should anything change from what we have approved this evening, please see city staff before you move forward with it, and there will be a final inspection at the end. Thank you. And thank you, members of the public who came and spent some time with us this evening.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, please, related to this.
Yes.
And it would be to request the city engineer to review the specific recent flooding of 13th Street, Oakwood Avenue, and 15th Avenue in relation to the 900 square feet of pavement in this proposal.
It's all right.
That sounds like a motion that is in order.
All
I'd
right.
like to second that as well.
Second.
Good.
Yeah, I'd like to
We've
second
had
it as
several
well.
seconds on that.
Second.
Thank you, and we will vote. Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
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 All right, so thank you, Dr. Davis, for reminding me about that, and if we can make sure that we get that passed along to the city. Mr. Edwards has joined the hearing, and we will move on. Thank you.
All right, moving on to HPC 2323, Bobby Tesney, petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a fence at 2 Oakwood Court in the Oakwood Court Historic District, Council District 4. So this is the location of the property as well as an aerial view. This case came before you last month. They have altered the request. Here we have the adjacent eastern properties. So their proposal is to keep the recently installed wood slat fence in the side and rear yard. The specific portion of the fence that was in question last month was this portion blocking the AC unit. They have since removed that portion and are asking for approval to keep the recently installed fence and to finish it and complete it on both sides. So here we have a couple of images of that portion that was in question last month, showing that the AC unit is no longer blocked with that fence. Again, this is on the opposite side. This side of the fence will be finished on both sides if they are to receive approval. And here again, we have the site plan showing exactly where that fence is located. So the materials for a wood slat fence, and here we have the applicable design guidelines. This time, we did not receive any public comment for or in opposition to this application. We do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Thanks very much. Any questions for city staff? All right, thank you, Mr. Bowen. And we will need your name and address, please.
Al Cabinets with Cabinets Engineering, 600 Lurleen Willis Boulevard South. I'm representing Bobby Tesney. Jonathan's kind of left me nothing left to say. He's kind of covered this. But so Mr. Tesney has removed the portion of the fence that was in question last month and is going to complete the fence on the other side as well as this one, assuming he gets approval tonight. And that's really about it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cabinets? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we saw this last month. Fence is of approved materials, approved style. It will be finished on both sides. It will not block the AC unit. Any discussion, motions? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about public comment. We were just rocking and rolling here. Anybody here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? Hearing none, I will now close the floor to public comment and open it up to discussion, motion by commission members.
Have no problem with it. I move approval of the petition.
And I second it.
Good, I have a motion to approve and I have a second. Any further discussion before we vote? All right, let's begin on my right, please, Mr. Cox.
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
The application has been approved, gentlemen. Thank you very much. If anything changes, see city staff before you proceed.
Moving on to HPC 2423, Shane and Brian Yoakley petition for a certificate of appropriateness for a design change to all windows on the primary structure at 27 University Circle in the University Circle Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location and aerial view of the property. Here we have the view of the primary structure from the street, as well as the adjacent northern and southern properties. This proposal may also seem familiar. Back in February, they received approval for casement-style windows. They instead would like to replace all their current windows with double-hung aluminum-clad wood windows. So the material is not changing, but the style of the window is changing. So again, here's the primary structure and a couple of images of the windows around the property. The material is for double-hung aluminum-clad wood windows, and here we have those spec sheets.
And they will match.
They all match exactly the same style. Instead of casement, they are now double-hung, which I believe that was talked about at the previous meeting. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have the petitioner here in person.
Thank you. Any questions? Appreciate it. Thank you. Let me invite the applicant to come to the podium, please, and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, Brian Yoakley, 27 University Circle.
So, Mr. Yoakley, the windows are by and large going to look as they do now. Same grill pattern, same size. You're just changing the, I guess, the style. Instead of being casement, they're being double hung, right? That's it.
Yeah, so in the February meeting, you approved the casement. Pricing of casement windows went through the roof. So I said no to that. And we had a lot of discussion at that meeting about why casement versus double hung. So now I'm just going back to double hung. The cost is more reasonable, and but the grid patterns and all of that will all be exactly what's in the house today.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, Mr. Yoakley. We appreciate it. All right, anybody here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? I'll close the floor to public comment and open the floor to discussion or motion by commission members.
I think the only slight misgiving before was the fact that we were going from double hung to casement. So this should be, I don't know, can I use the word better?
You can use the word better.
I'd move
So
to
is there,
approve as presented.
I was going to say, is there a motion in there?
Second.
Good, I have a motion, I have 2 seconds. Anything else? All right, let's vote. The motion is to approve the application as presented. Dr. Nelson?
Yes.
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 Your application has been approved. Good luck. Should anything else change, come on back to city staff, and there will be a final inspection of the project. Good luck.
Next case is HPC 2523, Nathan Lowen petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a fence on the property at 1713 7th Street in the Druid City Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the location of the property, as well as an aerial view. Here we have a view of that primary structure. And this is the adjacent eastern property. So the proposal is to rebuild an existing 6-foot fence. They instead would like to build it to be 8 feet tall. They're going to match the identical pattern of the existing fence, except for it being 2 feet larger. So here again, we have the primary structure, and this is an image of the current condition of the existing fence, as well as a closer up image there in the rear. These were images provided by the petitioner showing which portion of the fence to be replaced. The materials for a wood slat fence, and here we have the applicable design guidelines for fences. We did not receive any public comment for this application. We do have the petitioner here to speak in person.
Thank you. Any questions for city staff? Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Let me invite the applicant to come up to the podium, and we'll need your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Lowen. I am the resident at 1713 7th Street.
Yes, tell us about your application.
I would like to rebuild the fence. I would like it to be a little bit taller by 2 feet. That would afford me a little bit of privacy. I do have a young family. Balls tend to go flying in different directions. That particular property is a rental unit. There are often parties in the backyard, and any bit of privacy that I can obtain through changing those circumstances, I will do everything in my power to accomplish.
Do we have questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have we had any, so we've had no public comments submitted. Is there anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application? Let me invite you to come on up, and we will need your name and your address for the record, please. Oh, we'll need it in the microphone. Francis Little. Yes.
And I own the property at 1711 7th Street, next door to Nathan. And I believe we both had surveys done, and they show the fence being on both properties. It's the back of the yard. It's a little over, it's more his side. And in the front, towards where the gate is and such, is mainly on my side. So it's going, even though the properties may go this way, the fence doesn't. And there's some discrepancy, I think, about that. And he had mentioned, if you did approve it, that he would basically, well, I have it in the text. Would it be better if I let y'all hear it in his words? Or?
Sure, and we need you to just stay with the mic as well. You've turned
I'm
around a
sorry.
couple times, and I couldn't hear you.
Basically, he's saying that if he put it up, that I no longer can have my gate. We have a gate that expands the width of the driveway. And he's saying that he won't let, if he replaces it, that the post that my gate is currently on will be, I guess, non-existent. Because he's saying that I can't attach it to the post once he replaces it. We've had a lot of difficulty. Jim Standard is my attorney, and he wasn't able to appear here today.
All right, let me ask a couple questions.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with the materials of the fence, or
No.
the fence being replaced? So no problem with the materials or the height?
No.
It is an issue with a gate that is
Well,
there.
Among other things, it's kind of in-depth. I'd really prefer to have my attorney speak for me.
Is your attorney here?
He wasn't able to make it today. It's Jim Standridge.
Well, I'll tell you what. We deal with the design guidelines. So what we deal with is, if it's along a property line, we're okay with that.
Uh-huh.
And if it's approved materials and the height is okay, we look at that. But some of these other issues,
But where the gate is definitely on my side of, near the front.
all right, do we have a
But
photo?
he's saying he's still gonna take it all down. He's kind of taken
Okay,
some.
hang on. And so what we'll do is, yeah, finish telling us what your
Well, that's
thoughts,
probably enough
and then we
information
will
about
invite the
the gate.
applicant back.
And all that, will we be able to come back with my attorney here to speak? Before you approve or disapprove?
Unless it's in the next 2 minutes.
No.
We're doing it tonight.
No.
Yes. I'm so sorry about that.
That's
But we can, let's see what Dr. Lowen has to say
Okay.
and about this, because
All right, thank
your
you.
issue really is with this.
I don't hear well.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Your issue is with the gate, right? Or
Well,
some.
it's with the whole, the fence. I think he's trying to, I don't know if, we have two different people that did our surveys, but in his, what I gather from him is that it is all on his
Well,
property.
the survey
And
we have
on mine,
here-
I see it where the back of it isn't.
Okay.
But the rest of the fence, the majority of the property is, you know, these are old houses.
I know. Historic neighborhoods are like that.
But
Thank
I
you.
brought that information with me if it would help.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Little.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Let me ask over here, reading the survey. The survey submitted, the fence is where? It's okay. On the survey we have, the fence,
Yeah, Ms. Hayes is going to show exactly where that fence is located, but this is a survey that was submitted and provided, and it runs along the property line and also shows an iron gate that is on 1713, that property. And also think Mr. Lowen could address which gate, any questions regarding that, but this is the
Right.
survey that we have.
I just wanted to just clarify what we have to review in terms of the survey and the property line.
Yes, and the survey that we have submitted shows this fence is on Mr. Lowen's property.
All right.
I think Mr. Hobbs might agree with me that, property line legal issues and what can be constructed where and how the civil law may weigh in on that is complicated and nuanced and way outside of what we're doing here today.
Exactly. Thank you.
So,
Thank
I
you.
mean, she has rights in court perhaps, but I don't think it has anything to do with what we're doing.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Lowen, would you like to come up and we'll give you 2 minutes to rebut or provide additional comments to what was presented?
Yeah, as I said, or as you can see, the fence posts currently are just on the edge of my property. The iron gate is not the fence that we're talking about. There is a fence on the driveway of 1711 that is currently attached to a fence post that is where it says fence corner, where that arrow goes. It is attached to that post right there. If I rebuild this fence, I will have to detach the swinging piece of wood gate that is currently attached to that post in order to rebuild the fence. I do not want that to be my responsibility to reattach it onto a fence that I've rebuilt or paid to have rebuilt of my own accord. If the owner of 1711 wants to put in a fence post on their property to attach that gate to, I have no problem with that. If they want to kindly ask me to attach the gate to my fence post, that would be nice. I am open to any of those options. The sense that I've gotten from the owner of 1711 7th Street is that nothing should be done, no improvements should be made, and that I should not rebuild this fence. And that may lie outside the HPC. I'm just getting approval from the HPC to build the fence. If there are other legal issues that arise that are outside the scope of this committee, I understand that those will have to be addressed elsewhere. But
Okay.
the survey that we have is the one that I know, that you see right there in front of you.
Can we stop the clock for a second so I'll ask a question so I'm not running the clock out for you? Just to make sure, this iron gate,
No, I'm saying the gate we're talking about is not the iron gate.
oh,
It is, you
What?
see where the words fence corner are, and that picture is not doing it.
What other pictures do we?
There we go.
Okay, hang on a
Yeah.
second. Oh, there.
There we are. And in fact, there is a post there. There's a 6x6 or a 4x4 there that it is attached to. That 6x6 or 4x4 is currently attached to the 4x4 that's between those two red lines that you see there that I've provided. So in order for me to rebuild the fence, I need to detach those. Does that make sense? And I don't want to be responsible for reattaching anything, and that if the owner of 1711 7th Street wants to do that work of, putting that other 6x6 or 4x4 into place and putting up that gate, that is not my responsibility. That is all. I had previously offered to rebuild that gate for the owner of 1711, but they refused that offer.
Right, so in the photo on the right, basically where that orange line is, that's your property line. And to the left of it with that swinging gate is on the adjacent property. Got it. And the fence that we're looking at is going up and down the property line. And then we've got this little, okay, got it. Took me a while to get that one. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Nope, I'm not always the sharpest knife in the drawer. Does everybody else know what's going on?
So my question is, on the left-hand side that's on your side, the fence is going to be 2 feet taller, correct? But the fence that's on the side to the right is going to stay the same.
Like, because it's not on my property, I'm not going to rebuild something that's not on my property.
Okay. Oh, his property is to the right. I'm sorry. Oh, I see, yes. His is on the right, I'm sorry.
It was kind of complicated and tricky to parse all that out. So that's why I was asking the questions, because we've got Mr. Lowen's fence, right? And then there's this section over there. All right. So are there any questions? All right, because I think you had 10 seconds left. Anything to add in 10 seconds? Okay, thank you very much. 7 seconds. Thank you. I don't know what else you can add to this. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we're looking at replacing a damaged fence that needs work, and we're increasing the height, we're using approved materials.
And you'll be able to see that fence from the road. That one is,
It runs along the side of, if we go back to that image that we were just looking at, all right, so Ms. Wasden, if you look at the photo on the right, and if you were to think of that orange line as running up along the property.
Correct.
So what we're looking at here with that fence is not the fence in question, it is behind that. We're just looking at the front, so you don't see that fence because it's running along. Does that make sense?
Because you're looking straight at
yes.
it.
But is there a fence running on the western side of the property, the other side of the house? That's going to be, isn't there another photo that showed the front of the house and you saw a fence to the right? Yes, what's that? Is that that's a cast fence all the way across the front, correct?
Wrought iron.
That's wrought iron?
Looks like a brick wall also.
What's that behind it? I was
Yes.
confused, I couldn't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, for clarification,
Yeah.
Dr. Lowen, come on up.
Yes.
That's not
the
the
other property has a brick wall.
Can you get to that slide? Do you mind going to that
if
one?
you-
Yes. What am I seeing?
Okay, so you see where you see that white line? That's a gutter,
I do.
or right there. To the right of that is a brick wall that runs the length of the property on the other side.
Okay.
Do you know what the height of that wall is?
That wall is easily 8 feet. The tops of it are above my hands. It was built by, I believe, Mr. Hale, the former Mr. Hale, at an earlier point in time. Which is probably in the annals of this committee. I think I heard a story about it.
Thank you. So we have a application here. Anyone else here to speak publicly on this application? Let me close the floor to public comment now and move to discussion by commission members. So wood slat fence. It's here we have, because we're going to 8 feet, which I don't see as a problem, particularly because the fence on the other side, the brick wall that's been there for a long, long time is 8 feet or more.
And a certain Robert Frost comes to mind as well in support of a higher fence in this situation.
Yes, and so fence that's being replaced is, according to the survey we have, is on the applicant's property line. Any further discussion or comments?
It's been said ad nauseum that it is not for us to adjudicate, whose or where or anything like that. Materials are things we've approved 100 times. And as far as the height and all, I have no issue with it, especially with the context of the wall on the other side. Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and I have a second. Any further discussion? All right, let's begin on my right. Mr. Cox?
Yes.
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 All right, Dr. Lowen, your application has been approved this evening. Should anything change, please see city staff before you move forward. There will be a final inspection. Good luck with your project. Thank you. And let the record show that Mr. Morris has left the hearing and Mr. Cox has stepped out.
All right, moving on to our last case, we have HPC 2723, Patrick Adjie petitions for a certificate of appropriateness for the addition of a window to the primary structure at 908 Queen City Avenue. This is in the Druid City Historic District, Council District 4. So here we have the aerial view of the property as well as the location. This property also may look familiar. That's because you saw it during the March hearing. Here we have the adjacent northern property, southern property, and western property. So their proposal is for the addition of a single window to the south elevation. So again, here we have the primary structure, and then this is the south elevation with that proposed window. The proposed window will match the material that was recently approved during the March meeting for the vinyl clad wood window. And here we have that spec sheet and our applicable design guidelines. We did not receive any public comment for this application, and we do have a representative to speak for this petition.
Thank you. And let the record show Mr. Cox has returned. Any questions for city staff? Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Let me invite the applicant or the applicant's representative to come up, please. And we'll need your name and your address, please.
My name is Ann Cohern. I work for Ward Scott Morris. Their address is 1608 Paul Bryant Drive. Do you need my personal address?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else you can tell us about this?
It matches the 10 other windows that were approved in the March meeting, and this one just was left off of our elevations when we submitted it the first time. It goes into a bedroom.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No. No questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No public comment was submitted. I don't see anyone here to speak in support of or opposition to the application. So let me close the floor to public comment and open the floor to a motion or discussion by commission members.
Motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve as presented with a second. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All right. Motion to approve as presented, beginning on my left. Dr.
Yes.
Nelson?
Yes.
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 Your application has been approved. Should anything change, please see city staff. Good luck with your project. Thank you. And let the record show that Mr. Morris has returned to the hearing.
All right, in the last order of business, we have sent out updates to the rule of procedure. Just to highlight some of those proposed updates, in the rules, we're introducing a limit to the time petitioners can present their case, as well as a limit to the number of speakers in favor of or in opposition to a petition, as well as limiting the time in which the speakers can present their case in general. We are also updating chair to presiding officer found throughout the bylaws, and also updating to a standing motion to approve. So the Historic Preservation Commission will give each side of an issue or each side of a petition 4 speakers, 4 in support, 4 in opposition. It is up to the commission to decide or to vote to allow more. All speakers, excluding the petitioner, will have a maximum of 5 minutes unless the commission votes as a whole to allow longer time. Also, city staff will alert the commission once their time has expired after each speaker. The petitioner will have a maximum of 10 minutes to present their case unless the commission votes to allow a longer time. Then, for the rebuttals, there will be a limit of 2 minutes unless the commission votes to allow longer time for that as well. If there's any new information or in response to an objection, the presiding officer may allow for those in opposition to respond to the new information that was presented. So just like what we talked about, all responses would be limited from the initial response to 2 minutes. If you want to see further time, the commission would vote as a whole. And then for the standing motion to approve, so in regard to every application or request, there would be a standing motion to approve that request. So it would eliminate the necessity for a motion or for a second for that matter. So in a response, if there was a standing motion to approve, you would vote yes to approve or no to deny. And those are the main highlights from the updates. Went through and changed out chairperson to presiding officer all throughout. Do y'all have any questions about the rules or regular order of business?
I particularly am in favor of the standing motion to approve. We've had some confusion in the past with motions to deny and things like that, so it definitely seems to clarify that and makes all of our voting very clear.
Yeah, I agree that that's a good idea to clarify our voting. I guess I'd like to hear more on the rationale for imposing these time limits rather than leaving it sort of in the discretion of the chair. I mean, I think our meetings run well.
It's something that across the board and across other boards and commissions that all of them are falling under the similar procedure. So we're in an attempt to be consistent across boards and commissions. That's why there was a need to update the HPC bylaws to remain consistent for ZBA, for Planning Commission, and then as well for the Historic Preservation Commission.
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the source of some of those time limits probably grew out of some of the ZBA public hearings that
Sure,
tend to draw a lot more public comment and other people showing up to speak on the application. So I think that's where some of those rules developed. And then, like Jonathan said, we're just trying to standardize the practice across the different commissions and boards that touch planning and zoning with the HPC, the ZBA, and the PCC.
So, Mr. Bowen, I do have a question. Can we go back a couple of slides to the, I guess, the speaking time? There, nope. The next one, the previous one. It was the 5 minutes. 4 speakers. Here we go.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I want to ask you. Each side of an issue development shall be limited to 4 speakers. Is this what we're talking about with public comment?
That's
public
correct.
comment comes in, and so the first 4 public comments we get, and then we cut it off.
So with our other boards and commissions, we will have sign-up sheets outside, and those, in order to speak, you have to sign up beforehand. So you have to come, we'll put those out about 4:30. So anyone, it's a first come, first served basis. You sign up to speak. If you do not sign up to speak, then the commission would have to vote to allow for additional comments.
All right.
But in this, what we've done with the other boards and
All right.
commissions is anyone who has signed up, that's who gets to come up and speak.
All right, and their time has actually then increased by 2 minutes. Right now, we're giving them
Yes,
3.
from 3 to 5.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
Sure.
I would point out that under the rule, the 4 speakers rule, notice the clause right after that, unless the presiding officer or the commission decides to allow more. So if there were 5 or 6 speakers on a particular side of an issue, you or whoever was the presiding officer for that particular meeting would have discretion to allow others to speak. Or if the presiding officer didn't want to, but the rest of the commission did want to hear from them, the commission could vote and let additional people speak. There is flexibility and discretion that is built in.
I just want to make sure I was clear. And then, Mr. Bowen, how will these changes be communicated to the public at large?
Sure, so they will be posted on our website, at least for the first few months. We will be out talking to people, making them aware of the updated changes. We also have new signs that direct people to the meeting and explain a little bit about those changes. So we're trying our best to make the public aware of the changes taking effect.
We also do add it to the flyers as well. So any of the adjacent properties that are receiving the flyers, there's a new cute little note at the bottom that brings attention to the fact that there is a new speaker limit, and then on the back, it describes what that is.
That's great. What I do like is that we're formalizing this idea of allowing somebody to rebut, the applicant to rebut if they want to, a 2-minute rebuttal. And I think that's really valuable, because sometimes it's been a little confusing, maybe not as smooth, but this makes it much more clear. So thank you for that. Thank you for the work on that.
Is it always the first 4 that sign up that will be the first 4 that come through?
That's correct, and we do advise neighbors, if you're coming as a neighborhood, get together, decide who's going to speak, but it would be limited to the first 4.
But somebody could pass and let number 5 or number 6 go if they chose, right? But it's going to be the first 4 on the list.
That's right, yeah.
Gotcha. And the other thing about standing motion, I know sometimes we make changes in the motion, and so who is going to, the standing motion stands to be approved, but somebody's got to, I guess, read that with the additions or changes that we may make as a commission. Is that correct?
The way that the process and the order would run is basically once the commission had exhausted discussion, nobody else had anything left to say, and the chair would then move directly into voting, vote yes to approve, no to deny. However, that being said, motions to approve with conditions are always in order. So if there was an issue with an application, like issues that we've had on certificates that have come before the commission in the past, where somebody said, not like this, but if they did this or made this change, that motion will always be in order, and can be taken up at the time. So it's not. The standing motion to approve is always there. It's meant to expedite procedure and help the commission keep the meeting moving along. But it does not exclude or take anything else off the table. No, sir.
Who clarifies those? Will the chair clarify?
In terms of?
The amendments or the conditions or whatever?
It would be, there would have to be a motion to approve with conditions and state what those, let me back up.
In the way that we've done them in the past, right?
Exactly.
The motion to approve with the stipulation that the posts are 4 feet wide or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if a motion of that nature is made, then the voting is on that motion, not on the standing motion to approve.
Gotcha.
What's the thing about bringing new information up? I think I missed that.
Yeah, so for the rebuttal, it's intended that whenever you're going to rebut, that it's about new information that was presented after the 4 speakers in support and opposition have their time to speak. The petitioner can come up, rebut from those comments. After that, any new petition or any new comment must be related to that rebuttal. So it's to prohibit from the same comments being shared that were shared at the beginning. It's really to focus on new information that was brought up during the discussion.
Thank you.
I'll say just personally, I don't have any problem with this if everybody agrees to it. Personally, I would prefer not to limit the number of speakers, because I think we a lot of times just have people that need to be heard and have their voice, and I don't think it's been a big issue. but, you know, that's just my two
It
cents.
hasn't, but we've got leeway, we can do that. I think what I'm getting from city staff is they just want these bylaws to align across the commissions. And so I'm okay with that. You know, some of the language I found kind of weird for us, but I understand what you're trying to do, is just have this sort of standardization in a way across that. But we do have that leeway to do exactly that. Because I agree with you. We get people coming in, they're not always saying the same thing. They want to be heard, and we have that option to do that.
So the sign-up sheets that are put out there, how many blanks do they have on them?
They have 4.
See, I think that's the issue. I mean, how do the other people say to us, hey, I have something unique that I may want to contribute to this discussion?
So in this and what we've done with our other boards and commissions that have voted this in, we highly encourage individuals to reach out beforehand, to submit those public comments so the commission has plenty of time to read those comments, mull over them before you're even walking into the meeting. When it comes to the actual meeting itself, yes, we do limit to the 4 individuals because we want to make sure the information that is being presented is new information, is different. It's not the same thing being said over and over and over again, to the point that these boards and commissions are starting to get flooded with all the same information and it just kind of rolls together. Our idea behind this was to pull these neighborhoods together, to kind of bring them to come together, to have 1 or 2 designated individuals or 4 that are going to hit these different points that everyone is concerned about. So it kind of brings the neighborhood together in that way. But again, even though we do limit with these 4 blanks that we have and we limit the amount of individuals that can come to and speak, the commission or the chair does have the ability to allow for more if there is other information that needs to be shared. It's not just 4, that's it, no more.
Well, and I'll say too that in these recent hearings, we have the sign-up sheets out there on the little table. Very rarely do I get those sign-up sheets with anybody who has signed up on them. They're usually here on the floor. So, you know, we do have opportunities for that. They do. And, you know, I'm fine with having more than 4 lines on those but, you know, city staff, you know best what happens across all the commissions. But we do have a way of managing this. And there have been times when I've used a sign-up sheet, and there are times like tonight where there is no sign-up sheet. It's outside, and we've managed the public comment. So we just rock and roll with it. We're good.
As someone who's sat through my share of ZBA and definitely HBC meetings, but my share of planning commission meetings and ZBA meetings, there can definitely be public comment fatigue, where you will have an entire neighborhood of 100 lots worth of people show up and they all come and say, basically, we don't want it. And so I definitely see the need to have some procedural teeth for that in the event that you have those issues. Those are few and far between for us, primarily because we have fairly unique conditions and smaller neighborhoods. So I think that we have the ability procedurally to do it the way we've been doing it and allow the public comment so people are heard, but it gives the option to the commission and or the presiding officer to limit those.
So I think, you know, where the rubber meets the road for us, we're not going to see any change except because we typically are fine with the comments. Where we will see a change is that each person has more time.
5 minutes.
And that's significant to me. That's almost doubling the time. It's a lot. They're getting a lot more time on that one, which has its advantages and disadvantages too. But I think we're going to be okay with that. I highlighted that too when I went through the changes in the bylaws.
You know, I agree with the more than 4, because if somebody left, you know, if somebody couldn't wait, they got a call about a kid or something like that, you know, if you had 6 on there or something, you would have the option to go to the next ones that were there. So I do think it should be more than 4.
And just keep in mind too, not everybody who comes to these things signs up anyway. So even when we formalize this a little bit more, I think we're still going to have that one person might sign up, but the rest are in here seated, and we just do what we've been doing.
But you'll go by the list. I mean, if somebody else
we go
is
by
here,
the list, and
that's what I
we
mean.
have
So
done
you'll
that.
go by the list, right.
We've had a few applications in the last few years, I would say, where we've gone by the list.
You'll have to.
And some people then will waive their opportunity because
Yes.
someone has already stated what they've already said. And we will say to them, you know, bring new information or you know, new items for consideration. because we've already heard about the height of the fence, for example, right? If there's something else, tell us. And it's worked pretty well.
Very good.
So we will vote on these, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so we need a motion to approve these new bylaws. And I have a second, that's awesome. So let's vote, beginning on my left, please, Dr. Nelson.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
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 thank you very much, everyone.
All right, the last thing is 11 expedited approvals since the previous HPC meeting.
Thanks so much for all you do, and we hereby adjourn this month's hearing.